So we've come to my favorite part of the show, where I get to know my guests a little bit more. And so tell us, take us back to your beginning. Where were you? Where did you grow up? And then what was it like as a kid? Did you have any signs of interest in what you're doing today?
Yeah, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, where I still live. And I will say that if you had told me 15 years ago that this is what I would be doing, I would have laughed in your face because I did not go to school for business. I did not go to school for marketing. I went to school for environmental science and worked in that industry for a couple of years and just kind of fell into this through circumstance. I started working for a brand that it started as a side project of two Hopkins students who were basically tasked with starting a business as cheaply and as profitably as possible. And so basically they were business students at Hopkins, and they were given an assignment to start a business and make a bunch of money. We're a little bit more complicated than that, but that's basically the gist of it. And so they started importing posters from China and selling them. And then they realized that you don't need to import posters from China because there's a wealth of public domain images available for free on the internet. And so they developed some processes by which they scraped the internet for public domain images by the hundreds of thousands and processed them into Amazon, eBay, and Shopify listings, which then people could then purchase, and then they would print and ship them out. And it was just sort of a side business. They both had other jobs, and it grew into a successful company, and they needed somebody to come on and manage it. And so I came on as the director of operations and just kind of learned everything from scratch there. We had about 1.5 million products live on Amazon, eBay, and Shopify at any given time.
Million
So
and a half.
yeah, 1.5 million. And actually, a lot of sellers don't know this, but there's a high volume listing fee on Amazon. They'll charge you a certain fee for any product over, I want to say 500,000 listings if it hasn't sold in more than a year. And because our strategy was essentially, any one of these posters would only sell a couple of times a day, but because we had 1.5 million of them, it added up. So we basically had a revolving door products coming in and out of our Amazon lineup to avoid that high volume listing fee. But at any rate, that's where I learned to scale and grow things on Amazon and learn the ins and outs of Amazon advertising, learn Seller Central. And then people just kind of started coming to me for Amazon questions because they knew that I knew Amazon, and I started charging them money. And then before I knew it, I had an LLC. And before I knew it, I had an agency, and I was running a consulting agency for Amazon. I blinked and it happened. And so I did that for about a year, sort of on the side. It was my side hustle off of my day job, which was my employer's side hustle off of their day job. And then I developed a relationship with an engineering firm in California. And so clients would come to this engineering firm with ideas for a product, and they would build out, physical manifestations of that idea, beta test it, prototype it, and eventually give them a working model of their idea, and then build out all their supply chains and everything, and then pass them off to me to bring them to Amazon. So that was a big development in my company, which was called the Market Lab. And so I left the poster business and focused full time with my consulting agency. And I did that for another 2 years. So I did that for 3 years total. And then, we were growing and scaling, and I was enjoying it. I was working with a lot of really small sellers who either had hit a wall with their own internal Amazon management, or they weren't happy with the agency they were working with, or they just had never entered the Amazon landscape and they didn't know where to get started. This also was right around when COVID hit. So there was a very much renewed interest from businesses to enter the Amazon landscape or accelerate their Amazon presence. So I was doing that just myself the whole time. And after 3 years, I decided I have taught myself everything I can teach myself, and I need to be in an environment where I can learn from others because I see all these other things happening in the industry that I just haven't had the opportunity to touch yet. Um, so I shut down the market lab and I entered the ad tech world with a company called Quartile. Quartile is a software company and agency, and I can't say enough nice things about them. They have a remarkable product. I think that their bid management software is one of the best on the market. But when I was there, I was able to sort of the doors open to me into the larger industry as a whole because I had been so focused on a certain type of seller doing this very certain kind of thing. And I got very good at that, but I wanted to expand and see what else there was in the industry for me to interact with, see what other things I could learn. And that really opened the door for me. So since then, I've been working with mostly much, much larger brands. Right now, I work with Fortune 500 companies. But, I'll say, having gone from working with very small businesses on Amazon to very large businesses on Amazon, most of the problems are fairly consistent. These types of things that we've talked about here on the call, these are things that are affecting brands of any size. And these are problems that brands of any size and scale are struggling with is just, how do we reach the shoppers with what they're finding on Amazon? So, I've really enjoyed being able to bring my experience working with small sellers and merge it with my experience working with large sellers to produce ideas that really anybody can use.
Yeah. Well, this is what I always say. So doesn't matter how big you are. If you have not been selling on Amazon for a long time, and nobody is, because these large brands didn't even want to enter in the Amazon space until a few years ago. Either way, whether you are so big, established brand, or a small guy, when you start selling on Amazon, you are a startup, period. Because you have to do your homework with all the keywords, the personas, the metrics, and all the weird ways that Amazon wants you to operate. So everybody is on the same level as far as the things that they have to do. And the only difference is large brands have more money to spend. So, and they can finance their inventory much easier than small ones. But the work that needs to be put in there's no difference.